So welcome to my YouTube channel. That's what we call The Good Life. Today I'm going to be doing a harvest, a November harvest. November harvest, I hear you cry. Surely there isn't anything for you to harvest this time of year. But believe it or not, there are several things you can be harvesting, of which I'm going to show you what I'm actually harvesting myself. And I'm also going to be giving you some top tips towards the end on how you can harvest things later in the year, and indeed every month of the year, give or take. Now let's get started. So the first thing I've been harvesting up my allotment today are my Cape gooseberries. So I've actually got a bumper harvest. We have been particularly blessed with the weather. All the wind has been blowing in the right direction, and I've actually harvested a really big bag full of Cape gooseberries here. As you can see, they're absolutely delightful. So the plant is just over there, and even though the temperatures have dropped a little bit, not enough to stop this beauty absolutely producing loads and loads of fruit. And there's still not loads on there. Now that will all depend on what the weather does over the next month or so. Will depend how many more I get, but I'm absolutely getting a bumper full amount. As you can see, a decent bag full there. So that's something that crops a little bit later in the year. So well worth persevering with. I didn't really know what I was doing with it this year, I've got to say. I thought it's either going to be all or nothing, and it seems like I've got all, so I'll definitely be sharing this with a few friends and family. So as we move over, I've still got broccoli, believe it or not. So anyone who follows me, you think, oh my goodness, she's still got broccoli. Well, my tip on this is don't just pull it up straight away, just leave it. What else are you going to be putting here apart from here in the ground? But as you can see, I've had the main head, and I've got absolutely tons and tons and tons and tons of small heads coming, just like purple sprouting broccoli. So I've easily got enough for a meal, if not 2 or 3. So look, even quite decent sized heads there, and it's all still tender. It's all coming off really easily. The only time I pull this up is when I start breaking them off, and they don't break off very easily, because sometimes they can become a little bit tough. So look, it just goes on and on. The worst thing you've got here is you have the slugs and the snails starting to rear their ugly heads again, but they tend to leave the little spears alone. It's more the leaves that they attack, and with this kind of crop you're not really after that. I don't let everything get big, so when I come up here and harvest like today, I've got quite a few small ones. I'll take a mixture of the bigger ones and a mixture of the smaller ones, and we'll probably eat a large proportion of these this evening with our meal. So as you can see, it just goes on and on. And I probably harvested these probably 2 weeks ago. So this is probably about 2 weeks or a week and a half's growth. So they are still coming on really well. Probably helped by the rain. I've got no magic bullet. I don't put anything special on these, so I've not been feeding them with anything, you know, any secret ingredients. This is just nature. I'm not someone who puts an awful lot of stuff on my crops. Even the natural stuff I put a little bit on, but I'm not continually putting seeds on them and mules around and things like that. So as you can see, really fabulous amount of broccoli there, and I could probably go over there and pick a little bit more as well. So that's those 2 crops, and let's move up to look at some other things that I'm going to be harvesting today. My courgettes have all but finished, and I was coming up here today to start clearing some of this, but I noticed a couple of small ones. So before I start clearing them away and doing a little bit of weeding, they're only small, they're not a lot, but they're still my courgettes. And I've got a few over here and also a few over here. But again, you know, sometimes you can pull these things up too soon, and they aren't very big, but they will make a meal, you know. And in my book, it's worth leaving them in the ground to do that. You know, if you were going to be putting new crops in and you were going to be harvesting lots of crops from new things, then it'd be worth pulling everything up really quickly. But that is worth having, even though it's only small. So it's worth looking around before you start ripping everything up, that there's not anything you can eat. So let's move over. I've got some lovely chard over here, Bright Lights chard. So this is another crop. Now, obviously my courgettes are finished now. My broccoli probably won't go on for much longer, but even I can't believe I'm still harvesting. Things like your chard, an amazing crop to be growing, because it will go all throughout the winter and early into the early spring when it will start to bolt, and you just keep taking the leaves off and will keep coming. It is the most amazing thing, and growing a Bright Lights chard gives you a lovely little bit of colour in the depth of winter to add to your food. So it's just one of those really, really interesting things to be able to grow, and really, really tasty and versatile as well. You know, stir-fried salads, stews, curries, you name it. There's all sorts of amazing things you can be doing with that. So something else I've got in the garden are beetroots. So let's have a look at those. So I am getting towards the tail end of my beetroots because I've been harvesting them. And if it gets really, really cold, the cold weather can really affect them, and some are quite susceptible to bolting. But I've got some really lovely ones still in there, and even if they're small, they're still very tasty. It really doesn't matter whether they're large or, as you can see, there's still quite nice ones there. But you know, it's getting towards the tail end of the beetroots, so these won't go all throughout the winter, but I've probably got another month or two, and then I'll probably pull the rest of them and make something with them or give them away. So I'll probably pick a few more. I've got some more over there. But that's another lovely thing that you can be growing. And of course, good old-fashioned carrots. Now I will just leave these in the ground, and I dig the bigger ones and leave the smaller ones. So some people, I think, just dig them all up. But again, you know, when I came up here the other week, some of the ones I'm going to be lifting now were really quite small. But because I've left them, they filled out. So yeah, when I last pulled some, that's not the best carrot in the world, I'm not going to lie. But let's put a few more. That's a little bit better, isn't it? So, and again, the smaller ones, I just push them back in with my boot and wedge them down, and hopefully they'll get a little bit bigger. The Enviromesh is well worth using. I wouldn't say it stops carrot flight 100%, but I'd say it's close to 90%. So if you've not got any Enviromesh, it's well worth thinking about whether you're growing in the winter or the summer. We have got an allotment shop. I will put a link up on the screen and one also in the description. We do make a little bit of money out of it, not a tremendous amount, but a little bit, I have to tell you that. I've got a very funny shaped one there. I think we're getting to the interesting carrots now, because they are getting towards the end of the year. But I did have a little quick look before I started filming, and that's another interesting one. But we do definitely have some better ones here. Nice big one there. Oh yeah, that's a bit more impressive, isn't it? So yes, we are getting towards the tail end of the season. They aren't as big as they were at the beginning of the season, but they are still worth having in the ground and letting get a little bit bigger so you can get more harvest. Now I'll come back and I will dig a few more of those. Just pop those over there so I don't forget them. And something else that you can be harvesting, and this is a really, really good winter crop, are artichokes, and these are Jerusalem artichokes. They're the ones that grow in the ground. You put them in the spring, they do stay in the ground for a really long time, but I usually just dig a plant as I need them. And they do grow quite prolifically. So as you can see, they look a little bit like potatoes, but they are quite different. So there we go. So it'll take a little bit of work prizing them all off. And generally speaking, once you get these, they do self-seed. So this is a really good staple. If you really are trying to be self-sufficient, they grow ridiculously easily. There are slightly different varieties. This is the variety which I call given to me for free. So I don't know what variety it is, but someone very kindly gifted them to me. So you can cook them a little bit like potatoes. So you can mash them, you can roast them, you know, you can saute them. There's all sorts of weird and wonderful things you can do with them. So if you start growing them, my best advice is definitely to do a little bit of Googling. If they go particularly well with lemon, so roasted in the oven with a little bit of garlic and lemon, although to be honest, an awful lot of things go quite well. So this is going to take a little while for me to prise this all apart, but just gently tease them off. And you basically, you wash them, you peel them, and you treat them a little bit like a potato. So the next things you can be harvesting in November and through to the spring are leeks. So my leeks this year are particularly thin. So there are a few that I could start digging now, but I'm going to let mine swell out a little bit more. But typically they are bigger than that. So this is a really good crop to sow in readiness to start harvesting them around this month through to the early spring. So something else are parsnips, which I've got over here, which again, the same thing. Plus the fact I harvest everything, I won't eat it all in one go. I generally dig things as I need them. I've got parsnips in here, so again, that's something that you sow earlier on in the year, and you typically start harvesting them after the first frost. Legend has it that they taste better after they've had some frost on them, so that's another really good thing you can be harvesting now. Bizarrely enough, I still have a few things at home. I have a few tomatoes left on my tomato plants, and I still seem to be getting loads of cucumbers now. I've never had cucumbers this long, so continuously ever, so it's definitely the year of the cucumber. So that's another thing which you wouldn't typically be harvesting now, but for some reason I still am. Now my top tips on getting a long harvest are: 1, to successional sow. If you successional sow things, then things generally, you get more going throughout the year. To plant some things that are ripe for picking through to the end of the year, to the spring, and there are more things than you think there are. I've just touched on a few. Also, don't give up on things as well, so it's really easy when you put things out to think, oh, they've finished, they've done what they're going to do, and to just rip them up. Sometimes, and very more often than not, they can carry on for a lot longer. My broccoli is a prime example of that, and my courgettes are also. I know far too many people that rip stuff up straight away after they've had the first flush, or what they think is all they're going to get, and then they've missed out on lots more vegetables. Now I do hope you've enjoyed watching my channel. If you are looking for things to sow and plant this month, there will be a link up on the screen and also in the description.